flag. I want to know why this person's
You look
coaching.
at the cumulative amount of these flags.
Exactly. Does this person offer alcohol or drugs to my child? Does this man communicate on social media with my child? Does this man tickle or touch and roughhouse with my child? Any kind of touching. Does he want to take him on overnight trips? You know, a lot of it's common sense, but people don't want to think about predators that were our friends in that way, you know, people that we know. You know, it's very easy. When you think of the word pedophile, what comes to mind is a monster, right? In a trench coat, maybe with a knife on him. But that's not who the real predator is that we typically see. And so the real pedophile, in his mind, loves children. If you ask a predator, would you ever hurt a child? They would say, no, I love children, because in their mind, they are being loving. And so they're usually the charismatic person who loves kids and just wants to hang out with your kids.
And I've heard that parents can't get their heads around it sometimes because that person is such a close family friend.
Yes, and the parents are often groomed as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you'll see the predator talk to these parents about how wonderful their kids are, and everyone wants to hear how cute their kid is. And here's the tough call. It's not tough when I say it, it's tough in reality though. If somebody makes you uncomfortable, remove them from your child's life. You eliminate almost the entire problem. Now, it's easy to say that. It's much tougher to do when it's an uncle or a grandfather or a coach. 90% of kids that are abused by somebody they know. Mm-hmm. It's not typically the stranger. You know, we used to grow up learning about stranger danger. Well, strangers can be dangerous, but statistically speaking, kids are more likely to be abused by somebody they know. And the way that this person, the predator, accomplishes that is they groom or seduce the child. Grooming is a process that a predator uses to gain their trust. It may start off with a simple pat on the shoulder, sit on my lap, different things to gain the child's trust. Once the predator gains a child's trust, they eventually lead it to sexual abuse. And so what happens is the victim becomes what we call a compliant victim. It means they're participating in the sex. They're obviously not consenting, they're kids. But because they are compliant and are participating, they think they've done something wrong.
I was first sexually abused by a priest when I was 9 years old. I didn't know what was going on or what was happening. I blamed myself for what happened for so many years. I didn't tell anybody about it, not my family, not my friends, not my wife.
The other thing that happens is that kids, when they are sexually abused, they're traumatized. Many develop post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, PTSD. And it isn't until much later on in life, when people are reflecting on their lives, that they connect the problems they may be having in life with the sexual abuse that they suffered as a child. And so the combination of these factors makes it very difficult and not unexpected that victims will wait years and sometimes decades to come forward.
Right, and especially when they were so young, when their brain was developing, and they need a fully formed adult brain to look back on their life and see that connection.
And here's the one message I like to give parents, which is that you should never leave your child alone with a man until your child is old enough to understand that the person most likely to molest them is the person you're telling them to trust.
You know, one of the things you mentioned is the feelings of shame and embarrassment that so many victims feel about this abusive experience. And for many of them, that's the big issue. It's the big stumbling block. Can you tell us about privacy concerns? How do you protect victims' privacy?
Sure. Yeah, I know there's a lot of victims out there who are hesitant to come forward because of their privacy concerns. So the first thing is that if a victim chooses, they can file under what's called a pseudonym, which is a John Doe. So their names never have to be used. Their names are never out there in public, and they can maintain their privacy. And that's important. Some victims want their names out there, some don't. It's a personal decision. It does not impact the case at all. In fact, it's one of those things where I tell the victims, this is your choice. Empower yourself to decide how you want to handle it. And so their names are never used. To the extent that the records are requested, there's confidentiality agreements, and so they are protected.
One other, I'm sure, barrier to entry for many former victims is cost. They worry this is going to cost a lot of money. Can you give us an idea what it could cost them?
Sure. Well, it doesn't cost them anything to hire me. I do all these cases on a contingency fee, meaning that I only get paid if and when I recover money for them. I get paid a percentage from what I recover. Same thing with costs. I advance all the costs in the cases, and those get paid back at the end. If there's nothing ever recovered, they never owe anything. So there's really no cost. It doesn't literally cost them anything.
Wow, that's good to know. And your firm has a very impressive record of recoveries for sexual abuse victims. Can you tell us, like, what kinds of recoveries people might expect?
Well, every case is different. I believe anytime an adult has molested a child, the damages are into the millions of dollars.
Wow.
What I can tell you are verdicts that I've had. I've had verdicts ranging in a Catholic priest case of over $100 million.
To one victim?
To one victim.
Oh.
And I've had verdicts against institutions, charter schools, and 5 million, 3 million. I mean, it's a range. Every case is different, but I think these are significant cases.
I have to say, those are some significant recoveries. And when I do hear those numbers, the first thing I think is, wow, the damages must have been so great, the personal damage to these victims. I'm sure that no amount of money can truly compensate these victims for all the pain they've suffered. If you or someone you love has suffered sexual abuse as a child, I want you to know the attorneys at Herman Law are here to advocate for you. They dedicate 100% of their practice to representing survivors of child sexual abuse in civil cases, and they've obtained hundreds of millions of dollars in verdicts and settlements in child sex abuse cases. Please call the number